Hey, VeraSage Down Under. It's Greg Kyte here. I couldn't make it to Australia for the symposium, so I'm doing my presentation from an Outback Steakhouse, which is basically the same thing as going to Australia. I'm sorry, this is my best Australian accent, and I'm sorry if you can't understand me, but this is the best I can do, and I hope it's not too offensive to all you blokes and Sheilas, which is what I understand you like to be called based on the restroom doors here at Outback Steakhouse. But I do think this is probably the last time I'm going to be addressing anybody in VeraSage as a fellow, because we've determined that any fellows who were too cheap or lazy to physically go to Australia will be their fellowship will be removed from them. Ron Baker. And the other thing I wanted to say also is just a public apology, because I know that for a lot of you, just the sound of my voice triggers PTSD based on the number of advertisements you hear me on the Soul of Enterprise. So I apologize, not my decision. They asked me to do a commercial. I didn't know that they'd play it 85,000 times in 2 years. But anyways, some things I want to talk to you about that are on my mind with the billable hour has to do with billable hour fraud. Fraud and ethics, two things that are pretty close to my heart, things that I teach on, that I present on pretty regularly. And one of the things that doesn't get talked about a whole lot is how susceptible people are to committing literal fraud with their billable hour, because we know these two things are true about billable time. I mean, first off, there was a long time ago, there was one of those e-card memes that was going around on social media that said, my time card is an accurate reflection of how I spent my time at work this week, said no one ever. Very, very true. With all that, we know that time cards don't just inaccurately reflect how people are spending their time at work, but we also know that people pad their timesheets for certain clients. I know that's the case when I was at the firm I worked at, that billed by the hour, where you would go, well, here's a client who never complains about their bill, so if I need to put some more hours in to make sure I'm reaching my goal, I can put them on that client's bill. And we hear about this all the time, where people are like, the way they get around their billable hour goal is every day, regardless of what they did, they always put 8 to 10 hours billable to whatever the current engagement is that they're on. Even in Dan Ariely's book, The Honest Truth About Dishonesty, he had a letter that came in from somebody who was like an economic consultant, who just said that it's rampant. It's a culture that's rampant, and not only that, people will get fired if they don't meet their goals, if they're under the expectation for chargeable hours, they can not just get disciplined, but can actually lose their job. Which leads us to what is the fraud triangle with billable hour. If you're an attorney or an ad guy or an IT guy, you might not know this, but this is the fraud triangle. You need three components of that to get to commit fraud, or that's what's necessary for fraud to happen. Not that it necessarily will, but these three components need to be there: pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. So, is there pressure in public accounting or in other professional service firms to pad your timesheet, to charge too much? You're damn right there is. Is there opportunity? Yes. Nobody ever double checks to make sure you're actually working for the clients that you say they're working. There's zero accountability with those timesheets, other than, is there enough time on there or is there not? And rationalization, the easiest rationalization is what I just said. In most firms, everybody is dinking around with their timesheets to make sure that they look billable, whether or not they are. And not just that, it's not just that people have to pad their timesheets, but we also know that all over the place people are eating their time where they're working for a particular client, but they know that's going to end up making the project over budget. So instead of reporting the time accurately, which every firm is like, please, you got to make sure that you're reporting your time accurately, instead they eat their time and they say, oh, I didn't spend as much time on there because they don't want to get in trouble for that, which is the awesome, that's actually what burned me out of my firm, is that I was the one guy whose timesheet was an accurate reflection of what they were doing. But I was going to be damned if I was going to donate hours to my for-profit public accounting firm and work and not actually show it on a timesheet. So I reflected all my stuff on there, but people eat their hours all over the place, which is also technically that's lying, and we'll get back to that in just a second. But here's the crazy thing when you think about it, is that if any one of us, as specifically speaking as an accountant, any one of us who bills more time to a client than what they actually worked, we are defrauding our client. And it doesn't matter if it's just 6 minutes that we overbill one client, because in accounting, the standards say there's no materiality threshold for fraud. So even if you do that a tiny bit, you are literally committing fraud, which is crazy because we accountants, we audit companies in part to try to see if anyone's committing fraud. When it's us that's doing the fraud. Because here's the thing. So let's say that I overcharged a client and I send them the bill and they pay that bill for time that I didn't really work for them. That's no different than if I bill a company for 10 copies of implementing value pricing, but they only received 8 copies of that. It's the same kind of defrauding. Now, to be clear though, if I charge a company for 10 copies of implementing value pricing and instead I gave them 8 copies of implementing value pricing and 1 copy of Firm of the Future and another copy of Firm of the Future, that's not defrauding anyone, because we know those books are really the exact same thing. So we are causing fraud with the billable hour model inside the profession. And not only that, it's not just a fraud issue, it's actually contributing to fraud more widely throughout the world economy, really, because again, going back to Dan Ariely and some of the research that he's done, he's shown that if you are being dishonest in one area, we can't compartmentalize that as humans. If we're being dishonest in one area, that's going to prime us to be dishonest in other areas. Here's a experiment that he did where he had a group of students, and he got a case of designer sunglasses, Chloe brand designer sunglasses. He got those, and he gave his students these, and they were for real Chloe sunglasses. And some cohorts of these students, he said, these are authentic Chloe sunglasses. We'd like you to wear them and look around and fill out a quick survey about them. And then he'd take the test that he would give them to figure out how honest or dishonest they're being. And then there was another group where he gave them the exact same glasses, which were authentic Chloe sunglasses, like I said, but to those guys, he would lie to them, and he would tell those guys, these are knockoffs, they're not real Chloe sunglasses, and tell them to do the same thing, wear them around and see what they thought, fill out a brief survey, because they're sponsoring this, whatever, I don't know what he said, and then and then take this quiz, and based on how quiz where cheating was possible, he could measure that, and he'd measure their cheating. And then there was a third control group that he didn't give any kind of backstory about the glasses to at all, and what he found was that by just being exposed, so what he found, this is the actual results for the different cohorts. The group that was told they were actual Chloe sunglasses, 32% of those people in that group cheated. Of the group that was told no backstory, there was like 44% of that group that cheated. But of the group that was told that they were knockoffs, 72% of that group cheated. It was double, almost double from the amount of cheating when they weren't exposed. And here's the thing, they were just exposed to a story of cheating, which primed them to cheat. How much more impactful is that going to be if we're actually lying on our time card and then being expected to go out and to do all this financial accounting and auditing and reporting and compliance work? I mean, don't do compliance work, we know that, but you know what I'm saying. We go out and we do all that stuff, and where we could be contributing to fraud, but we're primed ourselves to lie and to cheat because of our behavior that's part of our culture at our firm with the billable hour. So here's basically a big announcement, just to tie this all up in a bow, is, and I don't know if the other fellows of the VeraSage Institute have brought this up yet at the conference, but we have been talking, we did take a vote that we're actually going to be making a pivot within VeraSage, and we're going to be taking on a slightly different direction for the VeraSage Institute, because historically we've been proponents of abolishing the billable hour, and what we're going to do instead, we've really been trailblazers, we've been the pioneers of abolishing the billable hour, but we're going to pivot and we're going to start going a different direction, where instead of being an outspoken voice against the billable hour, we are collectively going to become an outspoken voice for the billable hour, and we're also going to be pioneers now in billable hour audit, timesheet audits, where all of us, there's a gold mine of possible revenue that we could get in, and we need all of us to participate. All the different professions need to participate in this, because we will get rich if we do this. So lawyers, we need you to go in and we need you to help pass some get some laws, maybe file some lawsuits. I don't know what you people do all that stuff to make it so it's mandatory for timesheets to be audited. And then once that's part of the compliance system, that's where the accountants will come in and we'll actually provide the services, the timesheet audit services of the future. That's where the profession is going, and we need to get there before everybody else is. IT people, you just continue to dress up like Star Trek characters or Power Rangers like you do at your cosplay events, and we'll somehow try to fold that in a meaningful and valuable way. And advertising people, whatever bullshit you always do, it's clearly effective. So do that, and all of us together. If we have a unified vision, if we have a unified voice, and we have a unified stance, we can bring the billable hour back fully and in a strong capacity, and with that we can implement some timesheet audits, and we can become the new world of billable hour and how that's going to bring value to the entire planet. So I'm excited about this new place that VeraSage is going, and I'm excited to hear all the ways that you guys are going to find at the symposium to implement this great new vision that we have for VeraSage. So thank you so much, and I'm signing off from Outback because my kookaburra wings just came. Yeah, don't church it up. It's chicken.